Everything in Boruto's new chapter went wrong and right at the same time. Mamushi overwhelmed the battlefield, causing Daemon to reach his limit and Mitsuki to finally be useful, while Boruto for some reason refuses to use his karma seal, which forces Inojin to make the ultimate sacrifice, something we come to find out wasn't necessary, but we'll get to that part later on. We also have Code lurking in the 10,000th dimension waiting for his chance to consume the Thorn Soul Bulb of Mamushi. So a lot is happening, which means we have a lot to discuss, but of course, let's start from the top. So the chapter opens with Sarada collapsing from exhaustion and the popping of her blood vessels. Boruto gently caresses her face, so some content there for Boruto fans, but what's most important here is that he notes that she's still breathing, so her life isn't in danger. Those say that this might not play out the way Sarada fans want it to, because while she might not be dying at the moment, she does have some other issues. Hima was able to heal the damage to the surrounding tissue, but she does note that she has no idea what will happen to her vision. This dialogue of course was placed here for a reason. Hima didn't need to say this at that moment, but Ikimoto wanted to cast some doubt as it pertains to her Sharingan prowess. So that then leaves us with a few options. It could be the case that Sarada remains blind in one eye, and that is the end of Ohirume, which means Sarada will need to tap into the left eye to awaken whatever plot device it might possess. Or maybe Himawari somehow healed her vision as well, despite that not being a physical issue in this case. But maybe through some anime nonsense logic, which made it not a physical issue in the first place, she might be able to fix that issue. That would then mean that the dialogue itself wasn't to elicit a negative connotation, but a more so positive one. Those say that there's a more exciting option, and that of course is Sarada awakening the Renegon. Now, I know, everyone has made a video on this at some point, myself included, but this time it makes a lot more sense and it's way more simple. You see, to awaken the Renegon, you need to combine the chakra of Ashura and Indra, which allows you to manifest Hagoromo's chakra. Himawari is the direct offspring of Indra's reincarnate, which means she has Ashura's chakra. Sarada is the offspring of Indra's reincarnate, which means she has Indra's chakra. So Himawari's chakra, which is mixed in with the Nine Tails, has now seeped into Sarada's chakra pathway system to not just heal a small amount of damage on her hand like it was before, but to heal the literal blood vessels in her eye. One could argue that the chakra in the prior example wasn't enough to travel to her eye, because we have to remember that the dojutsu is awakened when the chakra is released from the brain and then messes with the optic nerve. So Himawari directly applying the chakra to her eye might be enough to trigger the awakening, along with the fact that it's mixed in with Kurama's chakra, which Hagoromo said when combined with Indra and Ashura's chakra would allow him, thus his chakra, to manifest. So the recipe is there, we just have to wait and see if Ikimoto will bite. Now we then move on to Mamushi cackling because these bums can't defeat him despite him being Chocho level, and this pisses off Daemon. So he tells them to come at him, and just does what he did in the prior chapter. Punch, kick, reflect. This of course takes out a couple Mamushi, but Shigadai points out that he's multiplying way faster than they can finish him off. And this of course is becoming a problem since Daemon is becoming tired. Yes, the dude with limitless power or whatever that Glazefest was in the prior chapter has reached his limit. So Mitsuki has to finally do something, killing 2 Mamushi in total. Now, putting aside making fun of Mitsuki, I am surprised by the lack of action from Boruto. Like, Boruto is doing stuff, but he could be doing more. He hasn't used the Karma Seal even once, which I assume would allow him to clear out the battlefield of so many Mamushi standing close to one another. It isn't lost on me that it is 1,000 Mamushi, but they're all in one place. Use a couple massive Rasengans. Use Momoshiki's ability to summon the massive Firebird or Golem or something. Make use of Himawari's Biju bombs by lowering the Mamushi toward Ada, then teleporting out of there. Or I don't know man, speed blitz these Chocho level Mamushis in one attack. Pull off a Gojo Satoru man. Isn't Boruto multiple times faster than light plus or infinite speed or whatever these power scalers like to say? I don't know, man, activate the Byakugan and Karma, then cloak your sword in purple lightning and get to work, buddy. I feel like I'm watching The Long Night from Game of Thrones from the season that shall not be named, and it's just hilarious, I don't know. Now, you could say that the reason why Boruto isn't using the Karma is because he doesn't want Kawaki to flip out. He did tell him that he can't control it, but I don't know, maybe lie? Say that you learned a new method of suppressing Momoshiki, so you're fine now. Make up something. Kawaki can't disprove anything you're saying, he just has to believe you. So I don't know, I don't think that's a valid enough reason to put lives at risk. And speaking of putting lives at risk, Koji finally revealed to Inojin that prescience isn't what he made it out to be. He has no idea what's going to happen because he hasn't received an update in over 4 days, and since he told Inojin about the future events such as his new ability, all the futures he saw before are subject to change, because as explained in chapter 16, to see the future is to break the future, which by the way also applies to Koji. So even if he didn't tell Inojin anything, by him simply seeing the future in the first place also changes the future. So everything that happened, including Mamushi's early arrival coinciding with Kobu's visit, is all a result of that. So as I've been saying for months now, prescience isn't that reliable, and Momoshiki's future ability is far better. You know, and you guys told me I was wrong, but here we are. Koji even said what I said before, verbatim. He notes that prescience isn't good for telling the future, it's more so better for information gathering. That is literally what I said, word for word. But anyways, he goes on to reveal in the prior timeline many people died in the village, which is what prompted Inojin to create the new jutsu initially. So now that he has prevented those deaths, and by having the ability beforehand, most of these futures no longer exist, except one, apparently. You see, Koji goes on to reveal that while the circumstances leading up to the current timeline are different, a scene similar to the current one has already been glimpsed in another future, which in essence means that what's about to happen did eventually take place in a future timeline where Inojin learned the ability after the people died in the village, which would make sense since despite Inojin learning the power early in this timeline, it still led to this point anyway. So this might actually be a fixed point in time, which means all roads lead to this moment. Now Inojin seemed to have picked up on what's going on here because Koji goes on to note that Mamoshi's intelligence is now reduced to its absolute limit, so he can't get any dumber. So they do have some other measures they could take. But after seeing Inojin's reaction, he notes that there seems to be no need for him to relay what those measures are. Inojin already figured out what he needed to do. After all, he's the one who suggested it in those other futures. We then skip to everyone getting overwhelmed by Mamushi. Boruto swoops in assisting Aiden Daemon, but beckons to Shikamaru for some sort of plan. But as it was in the Fourth Great War, Shikamaru couldn't think of anything. That is when the mind transmission jutsu lost power and all communications were cut off. Koji then uses one of his toads to reverse summon Inojin to the battlefield, which of course surprises everyone. He then rushes by Himawari, telling her to take care of the rest, while also instructing Shikidai to restrict the movements of Mamushi. He then used the mind transfer jutsu to gain control of its body, which for some reason allowed him to control all of them. Now to be fair, it wasn't for some reason, they actually explained what the reason was. You see, Inojin recalled what Amado said in the prior chapter about how it might be the case that the Mamushi share a single collective consciousness, which means that if they were to control one of them, they could control all of them. So this allowed Inojin to force them to stand down, but it didn't end there. He also called out to Daemon and aimed the intent to crush his eyes, which of course rebounded, thus destroying the eyes of Mamushi. He did this because Koji once said that if you destroy the eyes, they can't replicate. So doing this stopped Mamushi, but at the cost of Inojin's own eyes, of course, since he was connected to Mamushi when it happened. Now there's one problem with this, which is the fact that Mamushi also died. Yes, his body disintegrated and transformed into a thorn soul bulb, but I don't understand why. Koji never said that destroying the eyeballs would kill Mamushi, only that it would stop him from dividing. Yet Mamushi did die. So either Koji lied for some reason, or maybe he didn't know, which would be a bit weird. Because of course, since he does know that destroying the eyes stops them from dividing, that means that he saw them lose their eyes before, which also means he should have seen them die as well if it was the case that losing both eyes kills them. So maybe Mamushi died from the pain of having his eyes crushed over 1,000 times at once, who knows. His pain receptors are dull, but maybe not dulled enough. I was gonna use the Jiraiya example because he obviously didn't die, but Kawaki only stabbed one eye in that case, so maybe the eyes are the weakness for the Shinju, but you have to stab both. I guess we'll see. Though I do wonder, if this option was possible, a simple genjutsu would have fixed the problem. Someone like maybe Sarada could have used genjutsu to direct Mamushi to do the same thing Inojin just did without the self-sacrifice. Mind you, Amado said this over the comms before Shikamaru told Sarada to use Ohirume, and also before Mamushi even got to the location. So if Sarada or Shikamaru were deductive enough to put things together the same way Inojin did, although he did do it a bit late as well, but if they did, this fight would have been over a long time ago. It's one of those things that's so minuscule that you would try it even if you're not sure that it would work. Though I will say that I am using hindsight no jutsu, to be fair. Shikamaru did have a plan that would have worked if Sarada didn't decide to take a nap mid-fight, but it's just one of those things where you're like, this could have been far easier in hindsight. In any case, it does seem like Himawari did heal Inojin's eyes, but we have no idea if he's still alive or not. It could go either way. I mean, he was connected to Mamushi when the eyes popped, so if the pain killed the Mamushi, Mamushi with dulled pain receptors, I don't see why Inojin would be alive. But who knows, maybe Himawari saved him in the nick of time. We'll see. Now Boruto was able to grab the thorn soul and Kawaki wanted to know what he's going to do with it. Boruto then said that Bug is not a shinobi, so the bulb might end up rotting away. He plans to bring it back to the 10 Tails dimension to resurrect him, which I'm not sure Kawaki agrees with. Maybe he wanted it for himself or something, I guess we'll see. But also, Code, yes, the Code we haven't seen in a very long time is apparently in that dimension, the 10 Tails dimension, waiting for Boruto to arrive, which means he probably watched the entire fight with Mamushi and went there to ambush a weakened Boruto when he eventually shows up. Now, I have no idea if this is going to work out for Code. It has to, because he has no other way of being useful or being relevant in this manga. So hopefully Code does get that thorn soul bulb and he can actually finally be a proper villain. But we'll see. With that said, that is it for the video. If you guys liked it, drop a like. If you're new, subscribe, and also consider becoming a member to support the channel. But yeah, I'll see you guys soon. Peace.